Oh boy, here we go. As if the video I did on ships like 2 months ago wasn't enough, I'm really trying my best to get everyone in the community as mad as possible at me, I swear to God. So, today we'll finally be ending the 15+ year long debate on which member of the main six is the best. We'll be using all the facts and logic to finally determine who is the superior pastel horse. And before we begin, let's just already eliminate Spike. Partly because, you know, it's the main six, not the main seven, nor the main six and a dragon child, and also partly because I just don't want to have to dedicate a whole section of this video to that annoying gremlin. You might say, oh, but Lumin, doesn't everyone have their own opinions on who their favorite character is? To which I'd say, no, this is purely objective and factual. If you disagree with anything in this video, you're just simply wrong, what can I say? So then, how do we go about determining what member of the main six is the best? Well, we're going to note down each of the reasons why said pony deserves to be the best, alongside any drawbacks as to why they shouldn't. Once we're done with all the presentations, we'll do a series of eliminations to eventually determine who is superior. So let's just start off these rankings with Fluttershy. Fluttershy, biological name Fluttera shinensis, is a Pegasus living on the outskirts of Ponyville. It's not that difficult to see why the fandom likes her so much. She has her wholesome, cute, and shy vibe from the moment we first meet her in the first episode. Additionally, as we all know, she loves animals, and is even able to talk to them. And while that's very nice and all, we should also look a little beyond her personality. Her final goal during the show, besides making friends and saving Equestria over and over again, is to help take care of all the animals. A goal which she ultimately achieves in the Season 7 episode, Fluttershy Leans In, with the construction of her animal sanctuary. However, things can't all be positive, and even someone like Fluttershy has some flaws we should take into consideration. For example, she's very antisocial. She only really talks to ponies she knows or is forced to talk to. Added onto that, she's also pretty gullible and a pretty big pushover, as we can see during episodes like Putting Your Hoof Down with Iron Will and the Cherry Sales pony. Although, her being a pushover does get better as seasons go on. Overall, Flutters is a pretty solid start. Not to mention, she has a creature of chaos who seems to care an awful lot about her. But, before we can come to a conclusion, we need to discuss all of the other main six first. Next up, the drama queen herself, Rarity. Even though I'm personally not a big fan of Rarity, she does have some very good qualities that people can easily take a liking to. For starters, towards the end of the series, she is likely pretty loaded. She owns and runs multiple extremely popular fashion boutiques at prime locations in big cities. With how popular Rarity's fashion becomes, there is no way she isn't beyond rich by then, which also seemed to be her ultimate goal to achieve at the start of the series. Additionally, she does also seem to have a very keen eye for detail, which, combined with her gem detection magic, also really helps her in the fashion world. And yes, I know I mistakenly said her special talent was fashion before, I forgot about the gem magic during that poll, I apologize. As for her personality, I don't really have much to say, except for the fact that she has quite the dramatic outbursts every now and then. Which also means the entire town's ice cream supply can just magically disappear overnight sometimes. She also seems to care a lot about what others think of her work, which I'm not entirely sure if that should be listed as a positive or a negative here. Like, being passionate about your craft should be a good thing, but it should also not affect your own choices to the point of abandoning your quality standards, like we see happen multiple times during the show. For example, during the Season 1 episode Suited for Success with the awful gala dresses, or the Season 5 episode Canterlot Boutique with the borderline mass-produced princess dresses. She does seem to learn from these episodes and tries to better her own craft, so let's leave the eye for detail on the positive side for now. And lastly, she seems to have a somewhat complicated relationship with her parents. When we see them during the Sisterhood Social episode, Rarity seems less than happy to see them. I could make the same argument for her with Sweetie Belle, but that also just seems like your regular sibling fights that every pony with siblings has had at some point. Regardless, let's instead move on to the next member of the main six. That one being Pinkie Pie has quite a lot of aspects to make her likable. She's always smiling, happy to see every pony, definitely not on drugs, and loves to party. I mean, what's not to like, right? Well, perhaps the fact that she's always so extremely excited, which definitely isn't for every pony. She doesn't seem to respect personal space or boundaries, as is seen in episodes like Friendship is Magic Part 1, Griffin the Brush Off, A Friend Indeed, Wonderbolt's Academy, Heartsbreaker, Secrets of Pies, The Mold Couple, The Last Laugh, to name a few, you know. Additionally, Pinkie seems to have a complete disregard for the laws of physics, and I'm not entirely sure if that's a good thing or not, but since I don't want to get on Pinkie's bad side, let's just say it's a positive. And while we're on the positives, Pinkie also seems to be a really good baker, whipping up cupcakes, pies, cakes, and whatever other pastries you can think of that you'd never eat if you knew how much sugar was in them. Wow, this whole section on Pinkie has just been all over the place. From positives to negatives to potentially positives. I guess that's kind of on brand for Pinkie though, so let's keep that going by discussing another potential negative for Pinkie. I can't do a presentation on her without at least mentioning this scene. I'm putting this on the negative side, but don't worry, I am very well aware that this is the exact reason some of you really like her, and I will take that into account near the end. For now though, let's move on to our fourth contestant. Alright, note to self, be very careful with what you're about to say. This fandom really likes Rainbow Dash for some reason, and... Wait, shit, is this thing still on? You don't have to be in this fandom for very long to realize that a lot of ponies really like Rainbow Dash. Fortunately for this video, we're looking at the objectively best of the main 6, not the fan favorite. If you want to see who this community picked as their favorite of the main 6, check my posts where I asked that exact question in 2 separate polls over the last couple of days. Anyways, right, Rainbow Horse. There is a lot to like about Dash, but I think the one thing that truly defines her is her flying. Already in her first appearance in the show during the first episode, we learned that she's an amazing flyer, clearing the skies in
10 seconds flat,
meaning she can always take care of the weather if necessary. Also, fun fact about that scene, it actually only takes Rainbow Dash 8.5 seconds to clear the entire sky, not 10. That's something I counted right when I first watched the show.
loop around and flat. What'd I say? 10 seconds flat.
Regardless, she is so good at flying that she eventually joins the Wonderbolts, also achieving her childhood dream, which to an extent also means she's kinda famous. The fandom also seems to love her ever-present confidence, as misplaced as it might be every now and then. I did also write down her loyalty as a positive in my notes, but I'm not entirely sure that applies. There are several times in the show where we see Rainbow Dash being selfish instead of loyal to their friends. Good examples of this are the Season 2 episode Hurricane Fluttershy and 246 Great in Season 9. Because there are both positive and negative aspects to her loyalty, I'm just choosing to exclude it altogether, and instead use this bit as a segue into the negative aspects of Rainbow Dash. Where we noted down Dash's confidence as a positive just now, the stubbornness that comes with that is definitely a more negative aspect of her personality. May the Best Pet Win is a great example of that. We often see her downplay other ponies' feelings just because they want to try and do something that Rainbow considers to be stupid or dumb, like in the first Daring Do episode, Read It and Weep, or once again 246 Great in Season 9. And remember how we had Pinkie with her psychopath scene? Well, Rainbow Dash has a similar incident. Now, this one is significantly worse, so much so that Big YouTube would probably remove this video entirely and put me on several more government lists if I said it out loud. So instead, let's just say that Rainbow Dash, at some point during the show, does some pretty unforgivable things that should get her qualified as someone that sounds a lot like this phrase. All of this while she sings a very catchy song about her pet tortoise. I'll let you guys figure out the rest. Next up, we're moving on to Twilight. And from my previous videos, especially the last one talking about the friendship lessons, some of you seem to think that I heavily dislike Twilight, which I can assure you is not the case. Twilight has always just sort of been a middle of the pack character for me compared to the rest of the main 6. Not my favorite, not the worst of the bunch. But that doesn't matter for this video because, objectively speaking, Twilight has some great points to argue she's the best. For starters, she's a princess, because of which she's very famous, and also seems to be immortal with her appearances in the G5 leaks. Additionally, she's the main character, which on the one hand gives her a shitload of plot armor, likely more than any pony else in the show. However, on the other hand, that also means she is the biggest trouble magnet you could ever meet. Be it intentional or not, I am surprised how calm the ponies are whenever all of the main 6 are together, because it usually means some near Equestria-ending event is about to take place. On the more personal side though, Twilight is basically the definition of a perfectionist, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the extreme levels Twilight tends to take it to, for example with her lists, and backups of lists, and backup lists of the backup lists, I have trouble seeing this as a positive trait. Additionally, she tends to panic and overreact if things don't go as she planned for them. Like during the movie when the other princesses disagree with her plan to move the sun and moon for the celebration. Or several full episodes that focus on this, like Feeling Pinky Keen, Lesson 0, or It's About Time. So much so that, as Twilight herself said it,
You made me a verb?
But with that perfectionism also comes a sense of determination, wanting to learn more and finding out ways to do better, and of course, studying. It's hard to argue against Twilight's knowledge. I'd say it's only rivaled by Sunburst, Star Swirl, and Princess Celestia herself. Last up is every pony's favorite apple horse. Well, unless you're, cultured. Like me. Nah, but in all seriousness, just like all the other ponies we've covered so far, Applejack has an equally good chance to be considered the best pony out of the main 6. After all, she is extremely strong, perhaps even one of the strongest in all of Equestria. She's a hard worker who will choose her family above anything else, yet at the same time she's also able to handle more delicate arts, like her abilities as a baker, at least when it comes to apple products. On the other hand though, her hardworking attitude comes with a lot of stubbornness, being very hesitant to ask for or accept help from any pony that isn't already supposed to be helping. Additionally, she seems to always be busy, be it with farm chores or friendship expeditions or saving Equestria over and over again. It doesn't help that she really seems to be a pony of all trades, like how she's an expert repair pony as we see in Applejack's Day Off and the Rainbow Road Trip special. On its own, I do believe this is a positive trait, but combined with the hard-working attitude I mentioned earlier, it can definitely cause some problems. And with that, we have covered all of the main 6's strong and weak points, but we still need to come to a conclusion as to who is the best pony of the bunch. A more competent YouTuber might say some wholesome, boring shit like,
"In the end, it's all up to you who you consider the favorite. It's impossible for me to choose just one best member of the main 6 to be the best representation of the entire community."
But fortunately, I'm not like that, so let's disappoint some of you by not picking your favorite option. We could just look at the amount of pros and cons and then see who has the most, but that would be kind of boring, and it would result in a 3-way tie between Rainbow Dash, Twilight, and Applejack, each having 6 pros and 3 cons. But given, not all of those aspects are born equal, so let's remove some of the more minor ones that people generally wouldn't care for in their decision of who is the best pony. For the positives, these are things like if they achieve their goals, which we see for Fluttershy, Rarity, and Rainbow Dash. Rarity's eye for details can also go, and the same for Rainbow Dash and Twilight being famous and having plot armor. For the negatives, we should look at the things that people wouldn't really mind about the pony in question, like Fluttershy being antisocial. Most people who would pick Flutters as their favorite really like her introverted nature. Same for Pinky with being too excited, and even to an extent her being a potential psycho. AJ and Dash's stubbornness and Twilight's perfectionism can also go. Rarity is the only one who has the same amount of pros and cons at this point, whereas every pony else has more positives than negatives, so it seems only reasonable for Rarity to be the first one to go. Next up, let's take a look at the stories of the characters. Which of the remaining 5 have the most impressive or cool character arcs over the 9 seasons? Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy clearly achieved their ultimate goals of building an animal sanctuary and joining the Wonderbolts. Twilight went from hermit to princess of friendship and eventually became the ruler of Equestria. Meanwhile, Pinky fucked Weird Al and had a kid, and Applejack didn't really do shit either. Though, where Pinky had several episodes like A Friend Indeed and Pinky Pride that were dedicated to Pinky being confronted with her personality and flaws, Applejack didn't really have any of those. So the second pony to be eliminated in this video is AJ. Next up, uniqueness. The best pony shouldn't be very similar to other characters we see in the show. So, for our 4 remaining horsies, let's see who is closest to them character-wise and determine which of those is the most similar. For Fluttershy, I'm going to say our closest character is Dr. Fauna, the vet. Both live in Ponyville, work with animals, and the main difference is that Fluttershy is actually able to talk to the animals, whereas Dr. Fauna just takes care of them. Pinky's closest second has to be Cheese Sandwich. I can't think of any pony else to get even close to matching her energy. And Twilight is kind of difficult. For her position as ruler, she would be closest to Celestia. However, if we're just looking at her magical abilities, Starlight would probably be our best bet. And because it's difficult to find a single pony to directly match up against Twilight, I think she just passes this round automatically. Meanwhile, for Dash, I would have to argue for Lightning Dust. They have very similar flying skills, even the same daring attitude. The main difference is just that Lightning Dust is a lot more reckless. Now, it'd be easy to say that Pinkie and Cheese are basically exactly the same and call it there, but it doesn't seem that Cheese has many reality-bending abilities, nor does he seem to have any murderous intent. Meanwhile, Fluttershy and Dr. Fauna are basically the exact same, except that Fluttershy is just a little bit better. Rainbow Dash at least has the ability to perform a sonic rain boom over lightning dust. Twilight, Rainbow Dash, and Pinkie Pie are left in the final 3 as Fluttershy is eliminated. Now, going back to these cards behind me, because we did spend the entire video making them after all of the characters still have some flaws or cons. Let's take a look at which of them are the worst, or would turn the most people away from them. Pinkie Pie doesn't respect personal space and boundaries, which doesn't really seem to be an issue for the people who really like Pinkie Pie, but it's a big turn away for the Fluttershy fans, for example. The same with her potentially having some murderous intent. Some people might be into that, but not nearly everyone. Twilight is a trouble magnet and easily panics over minor things. The latter isn't really a big issue for most people, but there being constant issues and potentially Equestria-threatening events all around her could be. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash has her downplaying how others feel, and this other part. And while the latter of these was just an incident, the way her sabotaging the weather factory is being portrayed as this might be a bit of an overstatement. However, it does still show what horrible things Rainbow Dash is casually capable of when things don't go her way. Rainbow Dash is eliminated. When I started this video, I was not expecting Twilight and Pinkie Pie to be the 2 finalists. My personal favourite ponies of the main 6 are AJ and Rainbow Dash, and while Twilight making it to the finale isn't that big of a surprise to me, I really thought we would have lost Pinkie Pie somewhere along the way. So then, the Punkle or the Twiggles, which of the 2 is the best? Where we looked at the negative features in the last round, I think it's only fair to end this finale by comparing the positive features of the 2 of them. So, Pinkie Pie is almost always smiling and happy to see you. She loves to throw parties, and not entirely unimportant, frequently breaks the foundational laws of reality. Meanwhile, Twilight is an immortal princess who is the very knowledgeable and very powerful main character, at least towards the end of the show. Now, I don't want to start the debate between who is stronger, Twilight at her max Alicorn power or Pinkie at her peak chaos, because I simply do not know. But I do not think we can underestimate how much weird and extremely creative shenanigans Pinkie can come up with, not to mention having a constant supplier of sugar. Now, I was going to say that there is no way for Pinkie to compete with Twilight's immortality, therefore Twilight should be considered the best. Yet, Pinkie has turned into an Alicorn Princess of Chaos at some point in the comics. With that, Pinkie has devalued Twilight's pros of being an Alicorn, being immortal, and being knowledgeable. So in the end, we are comparing all of Pinkie's pros to Twilight just being a main character. So with that, after a lot of 100% objective analyses, we have to come to the unanimous conclusion that the best pony in all of the main 6 is Pinkie Pie. Now, if you disagree with this conclusion, that is completely fine. Just know, like I said at the beginning, your opinion disagrees with the infallible facts and logic, which is fancy talk for you're wrong.